So hey guys, welcome to the first episode of F4. Essentially, F4 is going to be the first broadcast, weekly broadcast that's going to be student co-hosted. Usually it's all mentor based, and it'll be the complete opposite for this show. I am the main host. I will be here every week, and then there's going to be a rotating cast of possibly up to 30 co-hosts that are going to change each week throughout the entire season. My name is Sam. Right now, today, we're going to have Jordan and Anthony. And now we're going to go to the main camera so that we can have them introduce themselves. So you guys are on.
All right.
Want to go first, Jordan?
Sure. All right. Hey guys, I'm Jordan. I'm from Exploding Bacon Team 1902. I'm the co-president of that team, and I'm also the chairman's lead, and I'm the strategy lead as well.
And hi, I'm Anthony from Team 997. I'm Spartan Robotics. I am the chief designer, and that's pretty much it.
Nice. So, if you guys didn't read the Chief Delphi thread, today's episode will be about the large, disagreement around what bag and tag should be at this point. Bag and tag started as a way to essentially level the playing field between all teams, but has changed a lot since then. And a lot of people are talking about the archaic nature of just what it is in general. So I think it's probably a good starting discussion, just because there's a lot to it. So I don't know who wants to start off with their opinions on bag attack. Should it still be a thing?
Well, I think that at this point it's kind of a mixed bag because the biggest thing that bag and tag had going for it and still has going for it is the fact that it physically stops you from adding onto your robot, so that somebody in a regional week 1 isn't at a disadvantage from somebody who has a week 7 regional and has all the way up to the regional to build their robot. I mean, a good place to take a look at what it is like not having bag and tag would be taking a look at FTC competitions, because they don't have to stop building ever. They just keep on building up till their event. I've heard of teams in FTC building on their way to the event in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So, I mean, 2 robots really creates a discrepancy between the mid-level teams that can't afford 2 robots and the really high-level teams that have 2 robots and have the ability to practice driving.
It definitely does.
That's true. I actually have a couple of friends that are on an FTC team, and they literally just build whenever they want to. And what they did is they weren't going to competition until late. So they got to a point where they were watching other competitions and became strong enough as a team to just dominate every single robot at that competition. And by going to one regional, or I don't know how it works with the FTC, but they qualified to go to the state competition in Texas, I think. So it's imagining that with FRC, it's probably going to cause a much wider discrepancy because of really how much time has an effect on such a large robot, and how much the development of the game really affects how a team maybe changes their robot later on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, that gets to a good point. It's like what a lot of people talk about with the Vex Robotics competition. From what I hear, I don't do Vex Robotics competition. I've never participated in it. But what happens is people end up copying each other really badly. Apparently, I've heard this from some members of 254, that once they get to championship for Vex, every single robot basically looks the same. I don't know if that would ever happen in FRC, but people have said that it could. I feel like the robots are just too big and too complicated for that ever to really become a thing.
Yeah.
As brought up, though, bag and tag in the chat or comments or whatever in the side video, bag and tag does simulate real life deadlines. What's your thoughts on that?
You know, it definitely does. I mean, we personally don't build 2 robots. I don't know what you guys both do, but you know, when we put our robot in the bag, that is the last time we are going to be touching it until our regional competition.
Right.
So that does simulate something like product development, where, you know, once they release a product, it's going out there, they're going to produce hundreds of thousands of them, and they're not going to be able to make any revisions of those products until they're all sold.
at least physically. There's definitely software wise.
Yeah, I mean, there's software revisions. Depends obviously on the product. Are we designing a mousetrap? Are we designing a mobile phone? But there is still a level of you're not going to be able to revise a product
Right.
after releasing it.
Yeah.
But that entire simulation goes away with withholding allowance because you can develop the product after it's in the bag.
Yes, you can rebuild entire robots. I remember Spectrum last year, if I recall, between their regionals did a major rebuild of their robot because they misjudged what the meta of the game was. I mean,
Right.
at least this is what I recall.
I mean, you could think about with Cam Burglars, that was big last year. 254
Oh, yeah.
completely redesigned their intakes last year between events. And I mean, we even had a team this year. I'm not going to name what team number they're from, but they actually came up to us a couple days before Stop Build Day at a week 0 practice, and we're like, "Listen, our shooter doesn't work. Would you guys be mad if we just kind of copied yours and then just put it on after with Holy Clouds?" I am dead serious. That's quote. And I said to him, I'm like, "Listen, you do what you want. I think there's better things you can do to fix your design." Instead of just completely scrapping it and building a new robot in the next 2 weeks. But there's nothing stopping you from strapping it on. I mean, our shooter weighs a lot less than 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are bringing a shooter that's almost completely done through our withholding allowance if we needed to actually replace it. So, I mean, they obviously, if we could do that, they could definitely build one with pressing in a couple weeks, and we're also bringing climbers. So, it's not hard to revise your robot between events, but that takes away that entire point of simulate real life deadlines.
I think that the biggest thing that teams get from a second robot is the driver practice, and it's what I believe that teams that do not have second robots really get punished for with stop build days, because we finished our robot on stop build day, and we had very little driver practice this year, so we're using, since we're in districts, we're going to be using all of our unbag time for driver practice. But
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah,
totally a
we-
thing.
That's something that our team usually has a problem with, especially because in the past we've had varying build spaces every year, and usually we don't have a field or anything to practice on. And something we focused on was being able to actually build that second robot. We didn't quite get there, but we did finish a lot earlier than we usually do. So we were able to get a lot of driver practice, which is something that's really rare for us. And it just shows how important it is to be able to have that, extra time to be able to acquaint your drivers with the robot, because it's really important once you get to the competition, because some teams will have maybe 60 hours of driver practice, and some teams are walking in driving for the first time on a full field.
Yeah, that's totally. I mean, we finished this year's robot week 3,
Yeah.
and which was crazy for us. I mean, last couple years we didn't finish the robot at all. So when we finished week 3, we knew, okay, even though we don't have any field set up in our space, we're gonna have to figure out a lot of driver practice.
Right.
So I mean, we did stuff like go to the cafeteria and literally just drive around, simulate real matches. And then we moved to just finding all the teams in our area, finding out who had practice field, and we just literally scoured the entire northeast basically. We went up the state, we went to New Jersey, we went to the Suffield Shakedown in Connecticut, we went to New York City, went all over with our robot in the back of my dad's car and a couple students, and literally just practiced everywhere. I think we logged close to 100 hours of driver practice towards the end.
Nice.
So I mean, there's a lot of people that from very big teams that literally say right out there. I mean, a good robot with bad drivers is not going to do anything. And
I definitely agree, because in 2014, my team's robot, not catted, kit parts drivetrain, everything was just prototypes thrown onto our robot, and
Right.
we ended up making it to Worlds because we had a driver and a drive captain who knew what they were doing, had good game sense, and could just drive the hell out of that robot.
definitely,
And that was also an aspect of the 2014 game, just because the game was simple enough that there was only one ideal robot that you could really build, and then from there it was just how well you played the game. So good driving was really, really a factor in that game, and it was really cool to watch.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, good driving wasn't that much of a factor, just because a lot of people's robots even were just click a button, go up and
Yeah.
down, drive forward, and there was so little actual driving space that it just didn't make much of a difference. This year, on the other hand, driving is going to be a big factor. Knowing what speed you need, need to go over the defenses is big, so you don't end up getting stuck. Um, just being
Lining
able to
up.
drive onto the batter to capture at the end, being able to just score quickly. I noticed a lot of people failing at what people thought were easy low goals. If you watch Full
Yeah.
Metal,
Oh gosh.
there was plenty of teams, and I saw this at the Suffield Shakedown. I saw this at practices. They'll try to reverse their intakes when they're right up to that low goal, and it won't go in.
It just
It
slides
just
right
rolls
down.
rolls down. I mean, that's something that we personally took account for, but a lot of teams didn't. Our robot is a high goal shooting capable robot that shoot low goals. So I mean, when we shoot low goals, they just fly in, hit the back, and go right out. But there was a lot of teams that just didn't account for this, just try to reverse their intakes, and it does not work. So having, with a robot like that, having driver practice, just knowing, how to get onto the batter correctly, knowing where to go, and knowing the speed to let your intake speed. A lot of them, had indexers, so they'd be able to make their motors speed up quickly and have more power. But locals are not as easy as people thought, and without driver practice, they're going to be really hard.
And stop build essentially stops driver practice for a lot of the mid to low level teams that don't have a second robot. So it's just a question of whether the playing field should be essentially made more even by removing stop build day.
Well, Stop Build Day's entire purpose from the start was to even the playing field. And I mean, when Stop Build Day started, I think it was early 2000s. Don't quote me on that. They also didn't have withholding allowances, so that definitely changed the game. That was pretty recent. And also, people didn't build practice robots. That's again something that's somewhat new.
Yeah.
And I think when you equate, the whole practice robot and withholding allowance, it really shows the opposite. It actually just makes the playing field a lot bigger. Now, some would say, if teams like, 118 and 254 had full access to their competition robots the entire time, they can make better improvements, which I think is definitely a legitimate response. But I think also the teams that, are lower end would also be able to raise the bar. And the idea of, first, in general, should be to have the bar as high as it can be.
Yeah.
So being able to give you, I feel like what we should be trying to do as a community is try to bring the bottom up, and eliminating Stop Build Day would effectively bring the bottom up.
Yeah, I agree. And the problem I like with first in general is so when a rookie team joins, right, they have an opportunity to win the Rookie All-Star Award and grants them admission into the World Championship.
Yeah.
And they get the grant, the rookie grant, and then they go into competition next year, and that's it. Like it's really hard for a newer team to compete with the powerhouse teams that still exist, and there's something trying to even out the parity. I feel like getting rid of stop build would definitely assist in that, because that's becoming a real issue. And I really noticed the teams that have built two robots, usually they tend to just bring the second robot to the competition, because with the practice field, having that open and having maybe a backup drive team that's just literally practicing the whole time while the other teams are competing, that is going to give you such an advantage
Wait,
in the future.
do you mean
Yeah.
they're literally bringing two robots to
Oh yeah,
competition?
I've seen
Yes.
that definitely.
So
Okay.
yeah, a
So-
rule hole is actually that you can bag two robots.
Yeah,
Oh.
So if you don't bag, so that's why a lot of I've seen a couple teams, build three robots this year, was so that they could bag two robots and then have one to practice with after the stop build day ends. So yeah, I've seen people bring entire robots to regionals and literally keep one for spare parts and drive practice. So that's crazy. Yeah, so someone in the chat saying that it is illegal, but it's not. You can literally bag a second robot. You don't get inspected from your bag, you get inspected after. And until then, you're basically void of all rules.
Yeah, so as long as the second robot that you have is bagged at the same time as the first robot, then you can bring it. I thought you meant like just bring a second robot that you have to practicing.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
No.
it's just
Okay.
like, you guys brought my
It's 30 pounds, I swear.
All
Yeah.
carbon fiber, all carbon fiber.
we drilled a bunch of holes. Can you see?
Look, the entire thing's a hole. I mean, there has been teams that have gotten a lot of flack for leaving their practice robot in their trailers. I've heard of that. That's a big argument. There's also I personally got into a small argument with someone today over they were a district team. They unbagged for 6 hours and they found an issue with their radio. So what they did was they actually took the radio off of the robot to test it and make it work. But they took it out and then rebagged the robot without the radio. And I was just like, well, then the idea of the 6 hour allowance before district is so that it's like a regional event. But that's not like a regional event. I can't bring the radio home, have a week to fix it, and then come back. You have what, Friday night? And people were definitely arguing, but I feel like again that's a legitimate concern. Without with that, if bag and tag wasn't a thing, they wouldn't have to do that.
Right.
And then it would just eliminate a lot of gray areas because again, there's teams that cheat. I mean, as much as we like to think that the community's so good that there's not one team that cheats. There's 3,000, over 3,000 teams. There's at least a couple that just don't ever bag their robot.
Yeah. And
I'd like to think that there aren't that many, but I've seen on the FRC Reddit one person went out and said that their team did that. I'm hoping that's the only one, but it's really
not.
hard to police.
Yeah. And I'm curious about all the Chinese teams that have recently joined. Like, are they even like aware of when stop build is, or like, I don't know. I feel like it's harder to communicate that over to a team that has a completely different time zone.
Yeah.
Culture, different language barrier.
Yeah.
A very different language.
I have no idea how.
I'm personally very worried. There's about 6 or 7 Chinese teams going to the New York City Regional.
Oh boy.
Oh, you're gonna have fun with that one.
And there's a good amount of Turkish teams as well. Neither of them
Turkish teams
speak
are-
English natively, and some of the Turkish teams I do know English. Like we're
Yeah.
helping one team out that they completely know English, but they've been a team since like 2013. They're not a rookie team, but there's like 6 rookie Chinese teams this year, and I'm curious, like, how does that work? Like, we get into the field. Is our drive coach gonna have to like learn Chinese or like Mandarin and like communicate with these people? Because legitimately, that's really hard.
Yeah. And I don't know. I heard of one team that like consistently goes over to the Chinese regional and just like helps them out because maybe rules aren't completely clear there or something.
It's 694
694.
Sty Pulse, yeah. So yeah, they go over. I think Townsend Harris 2601 went there this year as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the inner New York City teams, which is why a lot of them come to New York City.
Right.
And a couple of those schools are primarily Asian, so they have a lot of people on their team that speak Mandarin.
Oh, okay.
So they'll go over and help them out, yeah. Because they're the top tier schools, and there's a wide gap of races there. But that's a totally different story. Let's not get into that. But yeah, that's a thing in New York City. It's the public school system in New York City is very weird.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
what'd you
that's
guys- Oh, sorry.
that's a thing. That I feel like a lot of teams from different cultures don't get what Stop Build Day is. And I'm like, are these teams even bagging their robot? Like, I don't know. Do they even understand to bag their robot?
Well, I feel like that a lot of teams do actually get it because there's enough, like 60 teams in Israel, and I'm sure that they all understand it.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of them also speak English.
Mhm.
True, but I'm sure that communicating Stop Build Day isn't gonna occur that much because of a language barrier.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether any international teams show up to New York City without a robot in a bag. I feel like it's gonna happen, Just because there's so many. I think it's like 13 or 14 international teams this year in New York City, and a good amount of them are from countries where they don't speak English natively. So,
Right.
I mean, some of them are obviously not going to like break the rules, like 4481 from the Rembrandts.
Oh yeah.
They're
Great
you
team,
know,
great team.
they're an elite team. They're not going to break the rules, but there are teams that I'm sure don't even understand the rules. I mean, there's Google Translate, and I'm sure that's probably how they read the manual.
But there are things that will be lost in translation,
Exactly.
like specifics in the rules.
Because the rules are
Just,
very, very specific, and
Yeah.
language
Plus all the
is
Q&As. And
Yeah.
just-
it's a lot, and I mean, it's not like they can go in Chief Delphi and ask a question.
Well, I've actually seen some of them go on Chief Delphi to ask questions, so
Was it in English, like translated?
yeah. Yeah.
Or okay. And someone even just commented in the chat saying they tried pit scouting with the Chinese team at Worlds and had a funny conversation trying to use sign language, asking if they put a noodle in a trash can. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Should've just got a trash can.
it's like, do you put the noodle? And yeah, they should just like picked up a trash can and put the noodle in and go like thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, do we have this down? I mean that's legitimate, and rules will be lost. So, let's
So-
see.
Question for you guys: what'd you think of Palmetto?
I enjoyed watching that regional. It was very balanced in that the rookie teams, I mean, they struggled with a lot of the defenses, but it wasn't unexpected that would happen. And there weren't teams that were scoring like ridiculously more points than another. There weren't like the 0-2 matches that you would see in the first week of Recycle Rush.
Yeah, Recycle Rush was rough. I mean, there was like
Oh,
you'd
yeah.
get like, especially at SBPLI. I mean, New York is not known for a lot. I mean, parts of New York are known, but a lot of the regionals are not very high level. And at SBPLI, I remember matches where it was just like you had 3-2-9 on one alliance, and they'd score 80 points by themselves, and then on the other side, it would be like 6 points. You know, like it was that kind of stuff going on, and like
Yep.
you don't see that this year.
Yeah.
This year, just looking at the Blue Alliance while I was at school, it was looking at like even the lower playing matches were still like 40, 50 points consistently.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of the points don't actually come from the harder tasks in the game, you know, shooting high goals. They come from just traversing defenses, and if a team even went as far as, you know, purchasing pneumatic wheels for their robot, they'll be able to do a lot of the defenses.
Yeah, they'll be able to score at least 20 points.
Yeah.
And that's something I like about this game, really, is because it changes scouting so much in that there's not just like 3 robots that you can pick that will win every single time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there are, but it's not like, okay, this robot is really good at doing the same task as this robot. Like, there are different types of robots. For example, the defense played by 1369 at the finals of Palmetto.
That was arguably one of the biggest points of their alliance. They
Oh, yeah.
needed that.
That
I
was- of course, they died the last match, but the first 2 finals matches were they just blanketed them and like probably lost them 20 to 30 points
Yeah.
just from shooting alone.
No, defense is really important this year.
Yeah.
Really important.
I mean, I predict that we'll see cheesecaking happening by just adding 2 giant poles in a sheet spanning it.
Yeah. Pool
Because there's
noodle
so
blockers are a thing this year.
Yeah, because there's so many short robots, but defense is going to be played, and short robots aren't going to play an effective defense. So, especially at the number 1, number 2 seeds, I bet that
Oh yeah.
their third robot is going to end up being a short robot that they're going to ask, hey, can you just put this sheet and these poles on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's
as
a
long
couple
as we win the
yardsticks.
Exactly. I mean, we personally, that's what we're part of what we're using withholding allowance to do, is because we're building our climber, and then it's basically we had a climber designed, and it worked, but we literally took it off our robot because we were so focused on low bar early in the season. Now we looked at the playing field and we're like, oh, you know, there's 7,000 low bar robots, and actually, it's better to be a taller robot. So we're just like, all right. So what we did was we put back on our 36-inch climber, and then we're going to span some Lexan across it to mount all the tanks.
There you go.
and it's gonna block some boulders if we have to.
Well,
So
if you're gonna low bar, I think that you have to be good at what everything else you're doing. Whereas if you're a taller robot, I think that you have a little bit more leeway just in the fact that you can also play defense inherently.
yeah, I mean, what we're trying to be is we don't think we're gonna seed in the top 8. So what we're trying to be is a first or second pick. And that's why we figured addition of a taller substructure and a climber would be the way to get there. Instead of just being a generic low bar, we can shoot high goal or low goal robot.
Right.
Because that's I mean, we got the idea of low bar thinking, oh, we're gonna be like, there's gonna only be like 5 teams doing low bar. And then the poll started going in, and then I was just like, oh, maybe it's just, Chief Delphi is skewed. And it is, but
Oh, definitely.
not as much as I thought, because we went to some practice events, and we saw a million low bar robots, and we're just like, oh, okay. Guess
One-
we should probably think of something.
One thing about Palmetto that definitely caught my attention though was the fact that we had the number 6 seed playing against the number 1 seed, and in the first match, the number 6 seed won, and
Yeah.
that I think that this game, the difference between the number 8 seed and the number 1 seed alliances is not going to be as big as it was in previous years.
Right.
It's
Like,
not.
Last year, if you're the number 1 seeded alliance, you essentially had a guarantee win.
Yeah.
I mean, not guaranteed literally, but
Last year there was just
83%.
there was not many Is that actually like the TBA? Yeah.
I calculated.
Yeah, it's like last year there just wasn't too much room for error, really. I mean, there was
Yeah.
the dropping the whole stacks thing, but when you started with consistent stackers, they didn't drop stacks. And
Yeah.
then it really didn't get too much where, a robot could, matches could be determined that much by crossplay until, like, Einstein Finals with Can Wars.
yeah.
I mean, that was the first. I mean, and of course that happened in qualification, eliminations during championship. But it really, at a regional level and even at a DCMP level, it was a lot of just okay. We're gonna stack this much. You're gonna stack this much, and we stack double what you're doing, so you have no chance of winning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially, you'd go into a match and everything would be predetermined.
Right.
You were going to win this match or you're going to lose this match based on what your robot could do. Essentially, you built a robot with a glass ceiling on it and you couldn't break through that.
No matter how much practice you had,
Yeah.
or Yeah.
Or
it just didn't matter. I mean, that even happened last year. We were at an off-season competition, and I mean, we built a whole new robot for the off-season competition. We were very happy with what we did. We got into the finals, and we looked at over, who we were playing against. We're like, okay, they can stack this much more than us, so we're gonna lose. And we did. We did lose. But we did actually win our first match, and it was funny because it was the one thing that could happen to destroy an alliance, and that was stacks tipping over.
Yeah.
So
then this year's game, it definitely looks like, at least from the first event that was played, that there's going to be so much strategy going on that I bet that we'll see a couple 8-seeded alliances actually winning.
yeah,
Yeah, the 8 seed actually gave the first seed in the first qualification matches a pretty good run for their money.
yeah, no.
They only lost by like 20-30 points each time.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be close. I mean, the scores are not crazy high. I mean, you had a team like 179 who arguably has one of the best robots to be yet released on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, just from looking at the reveal video and their gameplay, and I mean, they were only able to score with a very good alliance a little over 100 points.
Mhm.
And when you're talking about a normal match during qualifications being around 50 points, that gap is not big at all.
Right.
What did surprise me is the number of hangers that we saw at Palmetto.
Yeah, there were quite a few.
I expected
Yeah.
a lot less based on like how much people were putting stake into. I think it was like 521, who were like the only robot to hang at the week 0 up in Manchester, or yeah, no, not is it Manchester, New Hampshire? I'm sorry,
Whatever.
it's something with a man, I think. Oh, I think it is. I'm just gonna look this up so I don't sound ignorant, but yeah, they were like the only team to hang, and people were putting a lot of stake into them. And then at Palmetto, there was a good amount.
Yeah, the 2 Canadian teams, the one with the robot called Moose, I believe, hanged
Yeah,
a
yeah.
couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick
It is Manchester.
side
Okay.
note. I did love how the announcers were actually calling out the robots' names.
Yeah, that was nice.
Oh, but then
Yeah.
also I heard a couple people not liking that just because they found issues with like it being confusing for spectators by not calling everybody by their team numbers. Because every robot has to have team numbers on their bumpers, and then announcers are calling them by their team names and team numbers. Robot nicknames. Unless the robot nicknames are like really obvious, or like a team like Jordan, your team, Exploding Bacon, has such a big theme on your robot that you can pretty much tell it's Exploding Bacon just by reading the front that says oink oink boom or whatever. I mean, there's a good amount of robots that are just not themed in that sort of sense, and it's kind of hard for a spectator just to come in and know which robot the announcer's talking about.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely. I don't know. I guess I don't mind it too much because just of what team I'm on, it's just like something that theming is just a thing that's always been prevalent on our team. But I do see why it would be kind of frustrating because it's hard to keep track of it as a spectator, first of all. And then second of all, it's just like, okay, then why are you making us write our numbers on the bumpers? Why can't we just
Put our team name on our bumpers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't mind it too much, but I do see why it's an issue.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, personally, I've gotten to the point where, and this is almost bad. I know so many teams that I literally know what robot they're talking about just by knowing their team number. I can equate the team names with team numbers, especially with events that I watch every year. But so the average just person walking in watching, they're not gonna know the
Right.
difference.
They're
So-
gonna have trouble understanding the rules, let alone let alone team names, team numbers. I mean, in 2014, I was on an event and somebody was having trouble understanding the 2014 rules, arguably one of the more simple games.
Mm-hmm.
This year, coming in and seeing this is like, okay, what type of medieval carnival did I just enter?
Yeah. Last year was interesting. But, I mean, this year it is interesting to anybody just watching just because there's so much going on. The effects of the game are so cool. I mean, the field this year is sick.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
All the lighting effects. I just like the first time everybody saw it, the game reveal was so well produced this year. Usually just like a really crappy animation. This year they had a really good animation.
Yeah.
Actual
And really crappy
flybys.
Monty Python puns.
Oh, well, yeah. The actual game reveal, like, that wasn't great. But up until that, like, it was very, like, the actual game reveal that, like, got, like, 300,000 views on YouTube was very nice. I mean, a lot of the administrators in our school saw it and were like, whoa, this is a lot cooler than it usually is. And, like, we had literally people coming up to us about that. So, and the robots are cool. I mean, there hasn't been a cool, well, arguably 2014 was a very cool robot, but 2013, I think, was the last year where you could actually, like, it was a really good demo bot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
2014, bringing that big ball with you around is hard. And last year, it was, the only nice thing about demoing it is because you could put all your tools in the same thing they use for your game piece. But this year, like, it's just a cool robot, you can throw the dodgeballs at people and not hurt them, which is something we've done. And just, like, it's just fun. So I think
totally.
that's really good for first.
We're still using our 2013 bot as our primary demo bot.
A lot of people like it. I mean, frisbees are cool.
Yeah.
They just
Well,
are.
for the people that have frisbee shooting 2013 robots.
True. Very true.
You guys just climbed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You, by the way, just cut out a little bit there.
I climbed. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, actually, you know what? It's probably because I'm like sideways to my mic right now. Let me move it back. But yeah, no, you guys just climbed, which is cool. I don't know how you guys did in 2013. I know we copied some aspect of your climber for our climber this year, but
Oh, have fun with the 50 bajillion pneumatic pistons then.
yeah, we only have a single cylinder, but we're gonna have to have a lot of tanks.
Cylinder pistons are.
Yeah, it's okay. I do the same thing. I try to correct myself because I know there will be someone that'll be like it's cylinder, but I don't care.
So, have you guys seen any reveal videos that have just blown you away?
Oh gosh. Do we even have to say it?
No.
That honestly.
118.
Jeez.
Oh, you said it.
Just for our viewers.
Hey.
Just like, oh, that grappling hook is just. I'm a little worried that someone's not gonna like that too much, like for inspection. But I think just because they're 118, they might get away with it. I think there is a level.
Away with it just because they're 118. I think they'll get away with it because it's well designed and engineered.
I mean, it is well designed and engineered, but if I saw, like, as a robot, I do FTC inspection, and I'll probably end up, once I graduate high school, I'll probably do some FRC inspection. And as an inspector, I'm gonna trust a team like 118's scary design more than I'm gonna trust if someone, like a rookie team, try to make a grappling hook.
I mean, as long as they can demo it safely, I would let any team.
Yeah, it's similar. I think similar to probably what, like 1114's harpoons last year. Those were equally just as scary.
Yeah.
And I think they did pass inspection, so.
Any projectile that's being launched for any reason worries me to some degree and amazes me on another.
Yeah, the really thing that worries me is, like, what if they miss? There's no such thing as, like, getting the grappling hook back. At least they didn't demo that. And they could really easily violate the 15-inch rule, which would get them a tech foul, I believe. So, I don't know if Einstein's going to have a couple tech fouls this year, but it's definitely something that could happen.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that there's a lot of fouls this year anyway.
So many. It was rough.
That they showed off that I haven't seen many robots doing is going through the drawbridge from the proper side.
Mm. Yeah,
I mean,
someone just mentioned that their drawbridge mechanism is really well thought out, and it's really interesting to see that sort of like thought process being developed onto a robot, because I honestly, that's something I kind of conceived, but I was never really sure how to apply it to a robot, and that was just really cool to see 118 just perfect it, like, oh, there you go, that's what we're gonna do.
They make it look so easy.
Oh gosh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
I watched.
One of the coolest thing I think they made look really easy this year was adjustable angle catapult.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, if you didn't, like, ever try to develop a adjustable angle catapult, you wouldn't realize how difficult it is. It's really difficult.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, like, when I saw that, I was just like, really? Like, oh, that's cool.
And plus, one thing that they demonstrated that they could overcome in the video was the defenses. They shot over a plank that was about 2 times their height.
The football player thing. That was the point of the video I think I was definitely most impressed in, because that's the biggest issue I see with any high goal shooter this year, is that you could strap a pool noodle and a sheet to a robot and have a blocker. I mean, I saw there was a very good team a very competitive robot that I saw at like a week 0 practice, 3419, and they had a crazy powerful high goal shooter. Like, it wouldn't break an angle until it hit a gym ceiling. Like, it was that kind of crazy powerful. And I said to him, are you worried about the fact that they had the same cycle every time? They would go through the low bar, they would roll the human player would roll it into the intakes, and then they would go back through the low bar. They had swerve pneumatic drive, which is pretty cool, and they would shoot. Like, are you worried about someone just sitting in your shooting position with a pool noodle blocker completely shutting you down? And they're like, yeah. Basically, yeah. I mean, yes, we are.
So, for the teams that have always been high caliber that haven't released, which ones are you guys looking forward to most?
254.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a given.
I mean, I'm really hoping they make a reveal video again this year that's like 12 seconds long, and then just makes you want to cry.
12 seconds long.
2013.
Just watch
just like zhroom. All right, we're done.
See you at the competition.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
2014's robot, just that autonomous.
Oh yeah, they just had the 3-ball autonomous with both robots doing it.
We're gonna watch them doing a 2-ball autonomous this year, I bet.
It's like, here's our 6-ball autonomous, like, basically is what they were showing us. And I was just like, oh, nice, like, 254. You guys are good.
Really curious to see, I'm curious to see waves though, because last year they probably had the most dominant autonomous
Yeah.
ever in FRC.
I think
Um,
Tyler was talking about it. One of the mentors from 28, 26. He was talking about like a multiple ball autonomous. So
Yeah,
should be cool to see.
that would be interesting.
I know it looks like I thought at first 179 was trying to do that because you watch their match replays. They did the autonomous and then they drove back.
I think they were just setting up though to get the boulder immediately. I think that's what it was.
But I
I'm
feel
not
like they
sure.
could do a tool ball autonomous.
They definitely can. They have the potential because they have the time afterwards.
Yeah, and I mean they
But-
have a practice robot presumably, so they're probably gonna go back right now and maybe they're watching right now and just got a great idea to make a two ball autonomous. I don't know, but like I feel like they have the time. And their vision tracking was really good. I mean, if you saw it towards the end, they'd be able to get pushed by a defender and still make the shot in.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I'm the driver on their team, and I can tell you, trying to line up high goal shots without vision this year is impossible. Straight up, it's literally impossible. We tried.
See anything.
No, you can't see anything at all. We originally had a driver and an operator, and now we just concealed it all to me, and then we have our operator running cameras. So there's a camera mounted on our shooter, and we're gonna set up a camera that's on a GoPro stick that's gonna be a couple feet above our driver station to have a full field view, which by the way is legal, guys. So you might want to try that. But yeah, we're gonna just literally have the thing all the way above, and we're gonna see how that works. But yeah, lining high goal shots without any vision this year, especially with defense, is impossible. Because we were trying to do it without defense, and from the other side of the field with like the portcullis and drawbridge in the way, it's just you're done. You're not making a high goal. Especially because we expected the alignment line to be a lot more visible, and it's impossible to see. So.
I mean, this year is going to be it's the smallest target you have to hit. I mean, 14 inches wide, is it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 14 inches with a 10-inch diameter ball. I mean,
That's a tight squeeze.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I also noticed with the really powerful shooter bots is like it would hit the bottom of the goal
Yeah,
and it would still
wow.
spin in. I saw a couple of that where they would actually have backspin on the ball so they would still
Oh, there.
get in the goal. I saw a couple of those. So that'll be something that I didn't think about, but I think will make a difference. But yeah, it's just such a small goal this year compared to like 2014 where you had a really wide range. I mean, height was very sensitive.
yeah.
But you could be feet off to the left and right and still make it fine. You could be anywhere
Yeah.
on the field. This
Same
year,
with 2013.
exactly,
Right.
yeah. This will be more similar to 2012.
Definitely.
Where it's a
This-
really small goal.
This game has so many parallels to 2012
Yeah.
in terms of shooting, at least.
And even drivetrain choice. I mean, you saw a lot of people use pneumatic wheels in 2012 to get over the middle. See a lot of people do it now. I don't know.
And 2012 had a seesaw, and the Serval de Frise is sort of a seesaw.
Yeah.
Close enough.
The game balls are somewhat similar in size. I saw even some people tweaking their 2012 robots earlier in the season to shoot the balls to
Yeah.
find out compression. So that was pretty cool. You can compress these balls a lot.
Mhm.
That's another big point that I don't know how many people have figured out is ball size is a really big factor this year. We learned that the hard way at Suffield. So we started the day off with balls that teams brought in. So they asked, like, they had a lot of issues with their field this year, but basically they asked, teams to bring in a couple balls and just throw it on the field. But then halfway through the day, they got a shipment in from Andy Mark with brand new balls, and they put them on the field, and our shooter got jammed, like the first one. And
Really?
yeah, so we actually what we had to do was we had to move our indexer back. So we've come up
gosh.
with a system where it's just a single, it's really tiny. It's like 4 inches long cylinder. So all we really have to do is just move it back with a couple washers. But
Right.
that was just really a happy coincidence. So there are going to be a lot of teams that are not going to design for changes in ball size, and then they might get into the position of like 2012 when they would play the entire regional on a single set of balls, and then they would get into elimination matches and put brand new balls in the field, and then screw everybody.
One thing I've noticed when my team got our second ball was there is a little bit of a difference between the balls, but it felt like the balls the wear didn't affect how it was shooting. It just felt like the ball's properties were different. That's just what I took from it.
Yeah, it's just compressibility, because over time, I mean, we've noticed a lot, like, you'll rip holes in your boulders. Just over time, they'll just get a lot more worn, and they'll compress quite a bit easier.
Hey.
So teams that designed a catapult this year are not gonna have that issue. But all the teams with wheeled shooters are definitely gonna run into some issues with that.
So one person brought up in the chat a good comment. They were talking about when the Cheval de Frise stays together. Do you think that we're gonna see the Cheval falling apart at a lot of competitions? Do you think they're gonna retrofit them?
They're gonna change them up, definitely.
Well, once they reinforced them with the steel beams, they didn't seem to have as much issues with the Cheval de Frise breaking at Palmetto. So I'm not sure if they'll just continue with that and solve the issue, or
first they'll probably
continue.
release some sort of updated drawing, and they'll explain what they did. I mean, they've done this in the past. That's why they have week 0 competitions, which for some reason their week 0 didn't catch this issue, but which I found very surprising, because they did have a full official field at the week 0 in New Hampshire, and you would have thought, based on how quickly they broke at Palmetto, that they would have broken just as quickly at the week 0, because more than 8 matches were played at that week 0. And 3 Cheval de Frises broke within 8 matches at Palmetto. So I found that to be really odd, especially because there was like non-regulation bumpers at the week 0 and stuff like that. I don't know, maybe it was just because teams were not playing as hard at the week 0, not pushing their robot as hard as they would at a regional. But it just kind of found it weird. It may be an issue with certain Cheval de Frises. Maybe they used 2 different manufacturers. I know this year they had a lot of manufacturing issues on the field, which is part of the reason why there wasn't a official field at Suffield. So they weren't able to actually have a second field ready in time for 2 week 0s.
Right.
So I mean, that shows me just there, if they didn't have 2 fields ready in the Northeast with, there's a couple districts here, a couple regionals. I mean, they should have a couple fields ready, and they only had 1. So there's definitely some manufacturing issues, and they might have used 2 different manufacturers. Might be some discrepancies.
Yeah,
I don't know too much about it. We'll find out more soon.
We already saw issues with the Stonewall.
Yeah.
And how they got that wrong. So
Yeah.
Who knows what they might encounter with so many different defenses. I mean, this has the most complex field I've ever seen an FRC game have.
By far. By far. Not even
the
close.
most moving pieces aside from Maze Craze when it was all corn.
But yeah, no. There is a lot of stuff going on. And someone just commented in the chat, I guess they were probably at the week 0, and they said very few teams use the Cheval de Frise, which that makes sense. I think part of the reason why it broke so quickly is because it was the Alliance choice. So the first Alliance choice at Palmetto was the Cheval de Frise. I don't know if you guys were watching. You guys are both... Oh, no. Jordan's not from the West Coast. So I don't know if you guys were watching the entire day. But I watched from beginning to end, and it started with the Cheval de Frise. So that might have been why it broke so quickly. But yeah, the problem thing, the reason that it broke so easily was not because teams were using it the right way. Teams were trying to literally go up it without touching it.
Yeah.
So...
Just go for it. Just drive
right
for
way.
it.
Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, if somebody can get 24-inch bicycle wheels and treat it like another stone wall, all the power to them, I guess.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Just, I mean, we made a Cheval de Frise manipulator, so try not to break it. We don't have a portcullis manipulator, so like, yeah. And then someone just mentioned in the chat about the drawbridge, saying that it might break easily. I actually don't agree with that. So the drawbridge is made out of Lexan. And if anybody's ever tried to break Lexan by bending it, you would know you don't break it by bending it. You can step... I've tried stepping on it. Yeah, it's polycarbonate. It's not plexiglass under any circumstances. It's basically it's extruded plastic.
Extreme plastic.
It is.
I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, polycarbonate is used for bulletproof glass. I mean, it's very bendy, but it's not gonna break
Yeah.
in the failure mode of it actually
Bending.
snapping or
Yeah.
cracking.
There could be stress fractures around where they bolted it in. That's a possibility, but it won't be like a dramatic like crack in half moment that some people I think are expecting. It's not going to do that. So that's good.
It's gonna be interesting how teams deal with that because I definitely know that I was really surprised seeing how bendy it was in gameplay videos because I was just like, we've been using a wooden one, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wood, it's just gonna be stiff, and we're just gonna drive over it. No,
Yeah,
it might bend around our robot.
Yeah, no.
Might
We
wrap us
originally
up
had like a similar I forget what team what RA3D team was, but we were just gonna do the whole like lift up your arms thing and then bring it back down. We were gonna alert our refs. There was a lot of talk about that. Basically, we were just gonna release the drawbridge very quickly and then re-engage it so it didn't fold up, which worked on the wooden defenses. But with the whole bendiness and there's gonna be a whole like snapback basically. Feature of the real one. I don't know if that strategy is gonna work. So that should be interesting. And I also noticed even in the field tours, you didn't notice it bending that much. So you did. I rewatched the field tours afterward. Like I was like, did I just miss it, or was it really didn't look this bendy? And really, they just pushed on it with their hands and they walked over it, and it did bend when he walked over to the other side, but it didn't. I didn't see the whole like bending as it was coming down sort of thing. So
Right.
it was kind of, hard to see. And now, week 1, we all know that it bends a lot. So hopefully that doesn't alter people's plans too much.
So, what do you think the hardest defense to go over is going to be?
Sallyport.
Sallyport by far.
Yeah.
It's just no one's even going for it. It's just such a hassle.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about it is it's not hard on your robot, but it takes a while because you
Yeah.
have to. It's a 2-robot job, and I don't even think people are gonna want to put it on the field, just because it blocks robot view a lot. Because most robots are short this year, and a short robot will literally just get hidden by it. Because unlike the portcullis, it's not
Well,
clear.
The drawbridge actually shows a lot more of the hides a lot more of the robot.
The drawbridge is the worst.
Yeah.
Um,
So if they have to go for one based solely on view, you would want to hide your opponent's view with the drawbridge.
yeah.
That's an interesting strategy.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be really interesting strategies for like defense picking. One thing I noticed, someone said, I didn't know this, on practice days at regionals, you're gonna be choosing your defenses on your side of the field. I mean, on like the side of the field you're gonna be playing on. So the opponent's defenses.
So you're going to be choosing defenses you practice on.
Yeah, and then for actual qualification matches and elimination matches, you'll choose the defenses the other alliance uses. So I just figured I'd throw that out there to everybody watching, because that was like a weird thing I learned today, and I was like, oh, interesting.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, but figured I'd
I'll
mention
be
that.
right back.
All right. Yeah. So looking at chat, I see someone did a quick practice run with opening Sallyport on their own, so that's interesting. They were able to do it on their own.
Yeah.
I think 118
Congratulations.
did something for the Sally. They did, right? They had.
But they did it on the other side, I think, or was that? I think that was.
I don't remember.
I have to
Yeah.
watch it again, but
Yeah.
they-
Watch
they
it for the
definitely
5th time.
did.
Yeah,
I'm s-
they probably do have some sort of mechanism that does it. But
Yeah.
it's still time consuming, no matter what mechanism you have for
Oh, yeah.
it. The drawbridge, there are mechanisms that could do it pretty quick. 118
Yeah.
demonstrated a decent mechanism for it, but the Sallyport there's no quick mechanism.
it's
When
just
it's swinging sideways, it just
There's nothing. Oh, you know what they had? They had a hook, and then they backed up, and the hook dragged it backwards until they got through.
But even that, I feel it would be better on
Takes a long time.
Yeah, and it would be a lot easier if they could just drag it back and then have two robots drive through. So
Yeah,
again,
that's probably what they'll end up doing
yeah.
if they do even attempt to go. I feel like they'll have to at some point.
I mean, it'll probably be depending on how quick they can track targets. I don't know how good their vision tracking is.
Right.
It might be quicker to score the 10 points from crossing the 5th defense, aka probably the Sally Port, than scoring 2 high goals.
Right.
So that's gonna be something people are gonna have to think about, because you get the ranking point after crossing 4 defenses, but are you gonna be able to score that 10 points easier, or should you go for it? That's gonna be interesting. There's so much strategy, honestly.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it seriously is. I'm glad we have a good coach for this year, and I think she's watching right now, so
That's good.
good. Yeah, I mean, because we haven't really had a good coach. Like, we haven't tried to develop a good coach. We've always kind of just relied on whatever other teams had a good coach. And this year we actually have a good one. So I think that'll change. I mean, you need someone good this year, because there's going to be a lot of
So much.
figuring out where you're going, dividing up tasks. I mean, there are robots that can breach on their own, score some low goals, but like that's not going to be the majority. And if there are defenses like, the Sally Port and Drawbridge on the field, which there are going to be because they're in the same group, you're going to need some type of group work. Some people say cooperation, but you can't use cooperation because the whole idea of cooperation is you're working with the other alliance. So it'd be cooperation, but that doesn't sound as cool. So like, come on. It's like teamwork. There you go.
One thing I'm encouraged about this year is just seeing how many rookie teams, at least posting on Chief Delphi, can go over a majority of the drivetrain obstacles.
Mhm.
I mean, we didn't get the kit apart's drivetrain, so I don't know how easy it was to retrofit it with pneumatic tires or
Not that
larger
easy.
wheels.
It wasn't that easy. I actually wrote a manual on how to do it because Andy Mark released no information on how to do it.
Okay.
Gosh.
And so, yeah, I know. I actually, and I got a lot of people like actually used it as well. I mean, we went to a team upstate and they were using the manual to put together the kit. Like, it was really rough. I think towards like week 3 they released drawings, but they have yet to release an actual written manual for the pneumatic wheel upgrade. And I mean, it's kind of, especially because it was $350. It's kind of like, okay, you give us a kit, but you don't tell us how to put together the kit. So it's like, we could have just done this faster, just figuring it out on our own, because we're having to figure it out on our own anyway.
Mhm.
So I am very surprised that a lot of rookie teams actually got pneumatic wheels up and running on their kit chassis, or bigger wheels. I noticed even a rookie team with bicycle wheels, which was really cool to see.
It's
And-
very encouraging to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was annoyed this year. We missed the opt-out period. We were going to build our own chassis, and then this year we missed the opt-out period. It would have been really nice to build our own chassis this year, because it was a year we were going to have to retrofit the kit part of chassis a lot anyway. I mean, in years past, last year, the kit apart chassis works fine. The year before, it worked fine. This year, it doesn't. So I was like, come on, the one year that we were going to do it and then missed the deadline, like, it actually would have been really useful, because we probably wouldn't have done the same thing. We probably would have done some sort of like 8-wheel drive, something that like we could just know we're not going to get stuck, because there is.
What's interesting is seeing all the different approaches to how to get over the defenses as drivetrains. I'm looking at 2399s right now with tri-wheels, and I'm just thinking,
Yeah, I saw that.
Creative idea.
I mean, you saw that. You saw what's funny is both first games this year for FTC and FRC involved really unique drivetrain choices.
Yeah.
Right.
And climbing. So I mean, maybe there's some connections between the two. Maybe people are gonna start speculating FRC games based on FTC games. I don't know, but
Who knows?
people got the tri-wheel design from FTC bots, because there was quite a few tri-wheel FTC bots. So I did just see theirs. I'm wondering what the pneumatic wheels, I mean not the pneumatic wheels, the Omni wheels are all about. I wasn't able to figure that, because I feel like, and I think someone mentioned it, like
Somebody
there's
in the
no way to
comments-
control it. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't know whether it's gonna land on an Omni wheel or not. And then is your drive gonna be really like inconsistent? So that's a little
Somebody's
weird.
bringing up in the comments. Can't remember what team it was, but they had something that they're calling Swank Drive.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I do remember that.
yep.
And not to confuse that with the Twerve Drive, which is Swerve with tank treads on the Swerve modules.
Well, wasn't it Swank Drive? Wasn't that Swerve with tank treads?
Yeah, no. So Swank Drive is this one team, can't remember their number. They had a swerve drive, but underneath the swerve drive, they had tank treads that weren't touching the ground.
Oh, I did
So,
actually see that. I did see
yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah. And I saw a pneumatic wheel swerve with 3419s robot, the Rohawks. I saw their thing. We were at, again, the week 0 practice
Somebody's
event.
bringing up in the chat that's 1533 that had the Swank Drive.
All right, shout out to 1533. You the real MVP for that drivetrain. But like, yeah, I heard, the day before, one of my contacts over at 2601, the team that was hosting the event, or really just a practice day, they were just like, yeah, 3419 has a swerve drive this year. I'm like, that's so stupid. Like, why would you have a swerve drive? And then I got there, and it was really well designed. I mean, I thought there was going to be a lot more turn scrub. That's why, like, I was like, oh, there's not going to be too many pneumatic wheel swerves. Like, I figured it's just going to be lots of brown head issues. But they didn't have brown head issues. And even the modules were insanely well, built. Like, I think they said they were, like, 20 pounds each or something like that. Like, crazy weight on them. But they were really well built. And when you talk about the fact that their shooter is only, like, 15 pounds, they're able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Drivetrain choice is really interesting this year. What I don't like is the Rhino track drive, because I've seen it I've seen so many Rhinos get stuck, and I feel really bad because it was like a $500 kit,
Oh yeah.
and it wasn't easy to build from what I hear. The replacement belts are really expensive, and like I saw a lot of them get stuck. They didn't get stuck on the same defenses that pneumatic wheels got stuck on, which I noticed. They got stuck on like rough terrain, which pneumatic wheels have no problem on. But I was just like, oh man, I feel kind of bad for you guys at this point, because you chose the harder drivetrain option to build, if you're talking about the kit drivetrain options, and the significantly more expensive option, and it hasn't performed much better, and if not worse in a lot of cases.
And the failing pulleys, if you've been
Yeah.
keeping up on that.
That's bad as well. But they have Andy Mark did a great job. I was just like, I commented on it like when it was first announced. I was like, this is really bad. And then like I think it even got spotlighted, which was kind of funny. But like people were freaking out, and Andy did a great job. Andy Baker just smoothed everything out. You contact him, he literally just send you a whole new set.
Yep.
But yeah, they're gonna crack, and I feel bad for the teams that are not keeping up on stuff, bought the Rhino treads, and aren't gonna have new pulleys that are regional, gonna break a pulley, and then are gonna be possibly screwed.
Yep.
It's gonna happen to at least one team, I call it.
Now, shout out to 4143 Mars Wars, because earlier in the season they posted another swerve drive, but this time each module had tank treads on it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just I think we're gonna see some really cool drivetrains from, I think 1114 is gonna have a really cool drivetrain. I don't think 254 is gonna have anything awesome, just because they just seem to choose West Coast Drive every year. So I'm curious to see how they manage 4-inch Banebot wheels over the rough terrain. But really, I mean, I'm not expecting too crazy of a drivetrain, but I'm expecting something really cool tank tread systems from some of the top teams. I know there was one custom tank tread option, design that I saw at Suffield. I think it was Team Daisy or something like that, and they actually,
Stacy.
yeah, they lost. They had the Brecoflex belts, and they actually lost a belt in one of their beginning matches over the rough terrain. So hopefully that's not something that's going to happen to a lot of these custom tread designs, but it might be possible. Belts, tank treads are not easy. I mean, that's why people didn't do them until this year, really, because they didn't have to. And we're gonna see we're gonna see a lot of disabled robots this year anyway. But yeah, there's me.
I've seen at least one rocker bogey drivetrain, which those are always really impressive.
There's also Team Phoenix's what they call it, suspension drivetrain. So that's crazy. There's crazy drivetrains this year. But what I just noticed is it is 9:06, which means we are 6 minutes over what the show is supposed to be. So we can stay talking for like a post-show type thing if we want to, but I'm going to cut it right now for editing. So we're